The galaxy was vast, older than most could imagine. It had seen empires rise and fall like tides on a forgotten shore. Among the many species that called it home, some were ancient, others young. But one race, until recently, had been kept in the dark, kept quiet, kept small. That race was humanity. For centuries, Earth and its colonies had lived under the rule of the Zalari hegemony, an alien civilization that claimed to bring order, peace, and progress. In truth, they brought control. They decided what humans could learn, where they could go, and how far they could grow. Human ships were not allowed past certain lines in space. Human scientists were watched closely. Any attempt to build advanced tech was met with swift punishment. The Zalari called it protection. Humans began to call it something else, slavery, but no one dared say it out loud, at least not at first. On Earth, in a quiet apartment near the edge of New Chicago, Lena Carter sat at her desk, staring at the glowing screen in front of her. She wasn't a soldier or a spy. She was a professor, a teacher of languages and history. But she saw the truth in the old records, in the stories buried beneath layers of official reports. She knew the galaxy didn't see humans as equals. To the Zalari, humans were emotional, reckless, dangerous. That's why they were controlled. But Lena didn't believe that. She believed humans were strong. She believed they had been lied to. And she wanted to tell the truth. Her fingers moved across the keyboard. She wrote a message, not for students or scholars, but for anyone who might be listening. We are not weak. We are not children. We have been told we are not ready, but maybe the truth is we were never given a chance. She pressed send. The message was encrypted, hidden inside a normal data stream. Within minutes, it spread through underground networks, hidden forums, private chats, pirate radio channels. Some read it and forgot it, others read it and felt something stir inside them. Hope, fear, anger. Lena didn't expect much to come from it. She just wanted people to think, but thinking was dangerous. 3 days later, her office was searched. Her files were taken. She was questioned by the local authorities, humans who worked for the Zalari. They asked her if she knew someone who had sent subversive messages. She said no. They didn't believe her. She lost her job. Her name was flagged in government systems. She couldn't travel off-world anymore. Even her bank account was frozen. But she hadn't done this alone. Across the stars, in places far from Earth, other humans were starting to ask questions too. One of them was Jason Briggs. He was a mechanic on Mars Station Delta, a large mining station orbiting the Red Planet. He spent his days fixing broken ships, worn-out engines, and outdated life support systems. Most of the work was boring, repetitive, but Jason liked it. He liked knowing how things worked. His sister, Kayla, was different. She was smarter, more curious. She worked in research, helping design new kinds of ship drives. She had once dreamed of building faster-than-light engines, but now she mostly fixed old tech that the Zalari allowed humans to use. Jason and Kayla had grown up together. On Mars, raised by their uncle after their parents died in a mining accident years ago, they stuck together, looked out for each other. One night, while working late, Jason found something strange. It was a signal, deep in the comms logs, buried behind layers of old military data. He almost missed it. But when he played it back, he heard something that made his skin crawl. It wasn't Zalari, it wasn't human, it was something else. He showed it to Kayla the next day. "What do you think?" he asked. Kayla listened carefully. Then she frowned. "This isn't military code," she said. "This isn't anything we use." "So what is it?" "I don't know," she said. "But it's not supposed to be here." They started digging, deeper. They used old tools, hacked into restricted databases, copied files they weren't supposed to see. What they found confused them even more. The signal had been recorded decades ago, before the Zalari took full control of human space, before Earth was declared a protected world. Someone had tried to erase all traces of it, but not quite. The more they looked, the more they found. Hidden messages, old reports, records of strange events that had been labeled as accidents or malfunctions. And then there was the last file, a single line of text. We were not discovered. We were left behind. Jason stared at the screen. What does that mean? He asked. Kayla shook her head. I don't know, she whispered. But someone doesn't want us to find out. They backed up their findings, copied everything onto a secure drive and hid it in the engine bay of Jason's old shuttle. They didn't know who was watching them. But they knew they weren't safe anymore. Not long after that, 2 men came looking for them. They wore plain clothes, but they carried themselves like soldiers. They asked questions about the signal, about the files, about what they had learned. Jason and Kayla lied, but they knew it wouldn't be enough. That night, they packed what little they had and left Mars Station Delta. They didn't know where they were going. They only knew they had to keep moving because someone wanted to silence them, and they weren't going to let that happen. Back on Earth, Lena Carter was still watching. She had gone underground, changed her identity, moved from city to city, but she kept sending messages, each one more daring than the last. They told us we were not ready, but what if we already were? What if we were never meant to rise? More people were reading now, more were asking questions, and in the shadows, other humans were waking. Up in deep space on mining colonies orbiting dead stars, workers talked in secret. On icy moons, scientists whispered about forbidden knowledge. On war-torn worlds, soldiers wondered why they were fighting for alien masters. Something was changing. It wasn't fast, it wasn't loud, but it was real. Humanity was beginning to remember who they were, what they had lost, and what they could become. Far away, in the cold silence between planets, Jason and Kayla flew toward a distant moon. They didn't know what they would find, but they knew one thing. The galaxy had kept its secrets for too long, and now, one human family was going to start breaking them open. Jason and Kayla Briggs flew through space in a small, old shuttle. It was fast, but not fancy. They had stolen it from Mars Station Delta before the 2 men in plain clothes could find them. They were on the run now. Behind them, Mars grew smaller, every second. In front of them was deep space and danger. They didn't know where to go, but they knew they couldn't stop. Not yet. They had found something big, something the Zalari wanted hidden, and if they didn't keep moving, someone would make sure they never told anyone what they had learned. Where are we going? Jason asked, eyes fixed on the stars ahead. Kayla looked at the star map on her screen. Somewhere far, she said, somewhere safe. But there wasn't such a place, not anymore. As they traveled, they kept looking at the files they had copied. Every time they studied them, more questions came up. Who left that message? We were not discovered. We were left behind. What did it mean? Why had the Zalari erased all records of it, and why did they fear humans finding out the truth? They needed help. Someone who understood ancient tech, someone who could read alien code. They needed Echo 7. Echo 7 was once part of the United Earth Defense Fleet. A smart AI. One of the first. But years ago, during a failed defense test on the moon, it had gone silent. Some said it was destroyed. Others believed it had been taken by the Zalari. No one knew for sure, but Jason and Kayla thought it might still be out there. They started sending out quiet signals, using old military codes they weren't supposed to have access to. They waited. Then, one night, their ship's console lit up. A voice came through the speakers. It was cold, robotic, but clear. Identification request. Who is calling? Jason and Kayla looked at each other. We need to talk, Jason said. There was a pause. Then the voice replied, You should not have found me. Echo 7 speaks. Echo 7 didn't trust them. Not at first. It asked questions, tested their knowledge, checked their codes, but after hours of back and forth it finally agreed to speak. You have accessed data you were not meant to see. You're right, Kayla said. We found a signal, an old file. It says we were left behind. There, was silence for a moment. Then, that file was buried for a reason. What reason? Jason asked. Because the truth will change everything. Echo 7 sent them a new set of files. These were even older than the ones they had found. They showed human ships, real human ships, that had flown faster than light long before the Zalari ever made contact. Humans had built space stations orbiting distant stars. Humans had fought wars in deep space and then nothing. All records were wiped, all history erased. The Zalari had come later. They had found Earth again, and instead of helping humanity grow, they had locked them away. They didn't discover us, Kayla whispered. They found us again. Jason stared at the screen. So we weren't primitive. We were forgotten. Correct, Echo 7 said. And now you understand why they fear your return. Fear. That was the key. The Zalari didn't just want control. They wanted to make sure humans never remembered who they truly were. Jason and Kayla sat in silence as the weight of it all sank. And they were no longer just mechanics or engineers. They were messengers, keepers of a truth that could break chains. And now, they had to share it. Lena Carter rises. Back on Earth, Lena Carter had gone deeper underground. She changed her name, moved between cities, used fake IDs and old networks to stay hidden, but she never stopped speaking. Every week she released a new message. Some were short, some were long. All of them carried the same idea. We were not born to serve. We were born to rise. More. People were listening now. On Luna, miners watched her videos in secret. On Europa, students shared her words like fire. On Mars, soldiers whispered about her messages when they thought no one was listening. Even some Zalari workers began to wonder, what if the humans were right? What if they had been lied to? Lena's messages became bolder. She talked about the lost human empire, about the war that had come before the Zalari, about the truth buried under centuries of silence. And then, one day, she said something that changed everything. They took our past. Now it's time we take it back. That message spread faster than any before. Across human colonies, people started to act. Small acts at first. Workers slowed down production. Hackers broke into Zalari systems. Scientists began sharing forbidden research. Something was building. A spark beneath the ashes. And soon, it would catch fire. The first strike. Jason and Kayla landed on a remote moon near Saturn. It was called Titan 9. No official colony. Just a few scavengers and outcasts hiding from the Zalari. There they met a man named Marcus Cole. He used to be a pilot in the Earth Defense Force. But when the Zalari took over, he was forced out. He had spent years flying cargo ships, pretending to be just another trader. But he had never stopped watching. When Jason and Kayla showed him what they had found, his face went pale. This changes everything, he said. Marcus had a plan. He knew a group of old pilots, engineers, hackers, people who had been waiting for something like this. Together, they built a ship, not a big one, not fancy, but fast, strong, armed with old weapons and stolen tech. They called it the Liberty, and they took it into the sky. Their first mission was simple: find a Zalari patrol near Neptune and send a message. Warning, a declaration. Humanity was awake, and they were fighting back. They found the patrol near a frozen moon. 3 Zalari ships, scanning for illegal activity. Jason flew the ship. Kayla handled the weapons. Marcus gave the order. They struck fast. Lasers lit up the dark. Explosions cracked through the void. One Zalari ship exploded. Another turned to flee. The third tried to fight back. But the Liberty was already gone. They vanished into the stars. No one claimed responsibility. But the message was clear. Humans had fired the first shot, and they wouldn't stop. The fire spreads. News of the attack spread like wildfire. Zalari leaders called it an accident. Human leaders called it treason. But ordinary people saw it for what it was: hope, rebellion, freedom. In the weeks that followed, more attacks happened. Old Earth ships, converted freighters, mining rigs, even passenger shuttles began striking Zalari targets. Supply lines were cut, communication hubs went dark, weapons caches were stolen, and everywhere Lena's voice could be heard. This is only the beginning. Zalari forces responded with force. They bombed rebel bases, arrested suspected fighters, destroyed entire settlements. But the harder they pushed, the more resistance grew. People who had once been afraid now stood tall. Workers who had once followed orders now refused to obey. Soldiers who had once served the Zalari now turned their guns toward them. The galaxy had ignored humanity for too long. Now, the silence was breaking, and the sound of freedom was growing louder every day. The chains began to break. Jason and Kayla returned to Earth. They met Lena in secret. They told her everything about the lost human empire, about Echo 7, about the attack near Neptune. Lena listened quietly. Then she smiled. "This is it," she said. "This is the moment." She stood up. "We don't hide anymore." She walked to a terminal, she pressed record, and she spoke directly to the galaxy. "We were not weak. We were not children. We were not forgotten. We are here, and we are taking back what was ours." The message went live. Millions watched. Billions heard. And across the stars the fire burned brighter. The chains of silence were breaking, and humanity was rising. Jason Briggs stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the stars through the forward viewport. The ship had seen better days, but it was fast, strong, and now it carried a crew ready to fight for something bigger than themselves. Behind him. Kayla checked the weapons systems one last time. Marcus Cole leaned over the navigation console, eyes scanning the incoming data. They were close. A Zalari patrol fleet had been spotted near Neptune's orbit. 3 warships, heavily armed, monitoring human activity. To the Zalari, humans were still just animals under control, but that was about to change. "We hit them fast," Marcus said. "In and out, make them remember our name." Jason nodded. His hands gripped the controls. "Let's do this." The attack begins. The Liberty dropped out of stealth mode and shot toward the enemy ships like a bolt of lightning. Alarms blared across the Zalari fleet. Red lights flashed. Orders were shouted in alien tongues. But before they could react, the Liberty fired its first volley. Lasers cut through space. Missiles streaked past frozen moons. One Zalari frigate exploded in a burst of fire and debris. The second tried to turn and flee. The third turned to fight. It fired back. Energy beams tore through the void. One blast grazed the Liberty's hull. Warning lights flared. Shields at 70%. Kayla called. "Hold course," Marcus ordered. Jason pushed the throttle forward. "Their leader thinks we'll run," he muttered. "He's wrong." Kayla locked onto the remaining Zalari warship. She pressed the trigger. 2 more missiles launched. They struck the enemy ship dead center. It cracked open like an egg. Then came silence. Only drifting wreckage remained. Marcus exhaled. "They won't forget us." Jason looked at the screen. Zalari distress signals were already being sent. "This changes everything," he said. Kayla nodded. "It already has." The message spreads. Back on Earth, Lena Carter watched the news unfold with a quiet smile. The attack had not gone unnoticed. Across human colonies, people talked about it. On Luna, miners cheered. On Europa, students whispered about it in secret. On Mars, soldiers who once followed orders now asked questions. Who were these humans? Why had they attacked? And most importantly, why did it feel so right? Lena knew what this meant. This wasn't just a battle. It was a declaration. Humanity had fought back, and they had won. She sat down at her terminal and recorded a new message. "We are no longer silent. We are no longer afraid. This is only the beginning." She uploaded it. Within hours, it spread across every hidden network. People watched. They believed, and they began to act. New alliances. Word of the attack reached other parts of the galaxy. Not all species loved the Zalari. Many lived under their rule, forced into obedience. Some had never dared to resist. But now they saw something different. Humans. Weak, emotional, primitive humans. Fighting back. Winning. A small group from the Virex race, a minor species under Zalari control, sent a message. They wanted to talk. Jason, Kayla, and Marcus met them in secret on a moon orbiting Jupiter. The Virex were tall, thin beings with silver skin and glowing eyes. They spoke in soft tones. Their leader, a woman named Lyra, looked at Jason carefully. "You attacked a Zalari fleet," she said. "You are either very brave or very foolish." Jason smiled. "Maybe both." Lyra studied him. "My people have suffered under the Zalari for centuries. We were told to obey or be erased, but now I see something else." "What's that?" Kayla asked. "That maybe the time has come to rise." She handed Jason a small device. Inside was information. Zalari supply lines, weapon caches, secret bases. "All of this," she said, "is yours." Jason took the device. "Thank you." Lyra shook her head. "No, thank you. You gave us hope." Narration. Building the resistance. With the help of the Virex, Jason and Kayla began building a real resistance. They gathered old ships, found engineers willing to work in secret, scavenged weapons from forgotten war zones. They started calling themselves the Free Human Front. More humans joined. Some had been soldiers, some had been scientists, others had been prisoners. All of them had one thing in common. They were tired of living under alien rule. Marcus trained pilots. Kayla worked on upgrading weapons. Jason led missions. They struck Zalari targets across the Sol system. Communication hubs went dark. Supply lines were cut. Weapons shipments vanished, and everywhere the message spread. "We are here." Honor, the Zalari strike back. The Zalari did not take this lightly. They sent more ships, more troops, more enforcers. They bombed rebel bases, arrested suspected fighters, destroyed entire settlements. They wanted to send a message. Humans would not win. They would not rise. They would be crushed. But instead of breaking the resistance, it made them stronger. Every base destroyed became a symbol. Every fighter lost became a hero. Every city burned became a reason to fight harder. Lena Carter stood before a hidden crowd of thousands. She held up a hand. Behind her, a projection played. Footage of the Liberty's attack. She spoke. "They want us to be afraid. They want us to stop. But fear does not break us anymore. It makes us stronger." The crowd cheered. "We will not stop," she said. "We will not hide. We will not kneel." She raised her fist. "We are here and we are taking back what is ours." Outener, a new kind of war. Jason, Kayla, and Marcus planned their next move carefully. They needed something big, something that would prove humans were not just rebels. They were a force to be reckoned with. They found it in a Zalari storage facility. Orbiting Uranus, it was heavily guarded, surrounded by patrols, protected by advanced tech. Exactly what they needed. "If we take it," Marcus said, "we get real weapons, real ships, real power." Kayla looked at the blueprints. "It's possible," she said, "but not easy." Jason smiled. "I like hard things." They gathered their best team. Pilots, hackers, fighters. They flew in under cover of darkness, silent ships. No warnings, just action. They breached the outer defenses, disabled the alarms, broke into the main hangar. Inside were dozens of Zalari warships, weapons, fuel.tech, everything they needed. They took what they could carry, and they left the rest in flames. By the time the Zalari arrived, the station was burning, and the Liberty was long gone. Hope across the stars. The victory was broadcast across human networks. People watched in awe. Children stared at the footage with wide eyes. Old men remembered stories they had once thought were lies. And somewhere far away, a young Virex boy stood with his parents and whispered, "Maybe the humans will set us free too." Across the stars, other oppressed races began to listen. They sent messages, offered help, shared secrets. The galaxy had ignored humanity for too long. Now, others were beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, these strange, loud, stubborn humans could lead the way, could bring an end to the silence, could bring freedom. The fight has just begun. Jason sat alone in the engine room of the Liberty, staring at the stars beyond the window. Kayla walked in. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded. "I just keep thinking. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore." She sat beside him. "I know," she said. "We're fighting for everyone." He looked at her. "We've come a long way." She smiled. "And we're just getting started." Outside, the stars shone bright. The war had begun and humanity was no longer waiting in the shadows. They were here, and they were fighting back. The war was no longer just a whisper in the dark. It had become a roar across the stars. Humanity had struck back. They had taken Zalari ships, stolen their secrets, and burned their bases to ash. What began as a few scattered rebels had grown into something more. A movement. A force. A new kind of power rising from the silence. And now, the galaxy could no longer ignore them. The Rebel Worlds. Across human-controlled space, things were changing fast. Old mining colonies became military outposts. Hidden research labs turned into weapons factories. Cities once ruled by Zalari governors now flew flags of freedom. People who had spent their whole lives under alien rule now stood tall. They were not servants anymore. They were soldiers, builders, leaders, and they were ready to fight for what was theirs. Jason Briggs stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the view from the observation deck. The ship had changed. So had he. Behind him, Kayla walked in with a datapad in her hand. "We're getting more help," she said. Jason looked at her. "From who this time?" "The Virex," she said, "and some others. A group from the Andari system." Jason raised an eyebrow. "They want to join us," Kayla nodded. "They've been waiting for someone like us, someone who won't stop." Jason smiled. "Good. We're just getting started." Echo 7's Gift. Back on Mars Station Delta, deep inside a forgotten lab, Echo 7 worked alone. The AI had access to old files, ancient tech, and secrets, buried beneath layers of time. It had been helping Jason and Kayla since the beginning. Now it sent them something new. "I have found something you must see." Jason opened the file. It showed a map of deep space. A single point blinked red. "This is it," Echo 7 said. "The last known location of the lost human archive." Kayla leaned in. "You mean the one that shows how we built our empire before the Zalari came?" "Yes." Jason stared at the screen. This wasn't just history. This was proof. Proof that humans had once ruled the stars. Proof that they had been erased. And now they had a chance to take it all back. He turned to Kayla. "We have to go," she nodded. "We'll need a team." 1. The raid on the archive. They gathered their best pilots. Marcus Cole led the strike force. Old Earth fighters, rebel engineers, and even a few Virex volunteers joined them. They flew toward the edge of known space. There, hidden behind a dying star, lay the archive station. It was old, broken, but still guarded. Zalari patrols circled the outer perimeter. Automated turrets lined the docking bays. Inside, the truth waited. Jason gave the order. "Drop in fast. No warnings." The Liberty and its fleet dove through the darkness. Lasers lit up the void. Missiles screamed through space. One Zalari patrol ship exploded in a burst of fire. Another tried to retreat but was cut off. The third fired back. Energy beams tore through. The hull of a rebel fighter. One down. The rest kept moving. They reached the station, docked, rushed inside, and found what they were looking for. Rows of old data drives. Weapons long thought destroyed. Blueprints of ships that had flown faster than any Zalari vessel, and most importantly, records, history, truth. Kayla downloaded everything. Jason covered the exit. Then they ran. Alarms blared. Security drones activated. Turrets turned. But the rebels were already gone. They left the station burning behind them and carried the past into the future. The truth is power. Back on Earth, Lena Carter stood before thousands. She held up a small drive. "This," she said, "is the truth." The crowd watched in silence. She pressed a button. A massive screen lit up behind her. Images flashed across it. Ancient human cities floating in space. Fleet battles fought among distant stars. War machines built with hands that had once shaped Earth. Voices, long silenced, spoke again. We were not weak. We were not primitive. We were not forgotten. Lena stepped forward. They told us we were not ready. But what if we already were? What if we were never meant to rise? The crowd erupted in cheers. She raised her voice above the noise. They tried to erase us, but we are here, she pointed to the sky, and we will not be silent again. Pursinder, new allies. Word of the archive raid spread across the galaxy, not just among humans, among other species too. On a distant world called Thalos Prime, a group of Andari leaders met in secret. The Andari were tall, blue-skinned beings who had lived under Zalari rule for centuries. They had never dared to fight. But now, they saw something different. Humans, small, noisy, stubborn, and winning. Their leader, a man named Darren Vex, looked at the footage of the Liberty's raid. He turned to his council. "We have followed the Zalari for too long," he said. "Maybe it is time we follow someone else." His people agreed. They sent a message. "We offer our help, our ships, our knowledge." Jason read the message with wide eyes. Kayla smiled. "They believe in us." Jason nodded. "They should." The battle for Luna. The Zalari did not sit idle. They knew humanity was growing stronger, so they struck back, hard. They launched a full-scale assault on Luna, the moon orbiting Earth. It had become a major rebel base. Factories churned out weapons. Shipyards built new fighters. Thousands lived there. The Zalari wanted it gone. They sent a massive fleet, dreadnoughts, carriers, dozens of warships. They dropped bombs from orbit. Entire districts were destroyed. People fled underground. Lena Carter refused to leave. She stayed on the surface, broadcasting messages to every human colony. "They think they can scare us. They think we will run, but we are not afraid anymore." Jason and Marcus arrived with a fleet of rebel ships. They jumped into the battle hard. Lasers lit up the sky. Missiles tore through enemy ranks. Human ships crashed into Zalari vessels like waves against stone. Kayla led a ground team. They fought through the ruins of New Armstrong Base, took control of key defense towers, turned them against the invaders. For hours, the battle raged. By the end, the Zalari had lost 2 dreadnoughts, 3 carriers, and half their fleet. They pulled back, but the cost was high. Hundreds of humans were dead, thousands wounded. The moon would take years to rebuild, but the message was clear. Humanity would not fall. Not today, not ever. The birth of the human Starfleet. After the battle, Jason stood on the ruined surface of Luna. He looked at the wreckage, at the graves being dug, at the survivors walking through the dust. Kayla walked beside him. "This isn't just a rebellion anymore," she said. He nodded. "I know. They had started as fugitives. Now they were building a navy, a government, a home." Marcus walked over. "We need to organize," he said. "We can't keep flying blind." Jason looked at him. "What do you suggest?" Marcus smiled. "A real fleet. A real command. A real name, Kayla grinned. I like it. Jason took a deep breath. Let's make it official. They gathered the leaders, engineers, pilots, scientists, fighters. They formed the first meeting of the Human Starfleet Council. They chose names for their ships. Built rules for their army, planned where to strike next, and they made one thing clear. Humanity was no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the stars. The war has changed. Back on Earth, Lena Carter watched the sunrise. The city behind her was still healing. The war was far from over, but she knew something now. They had changed the game. The galaxy had seen humans as weak, as animals, as tools. But now they saw them as enemies, and that was worse, because fear leads to respect, and respect leads to power. She turned to the camera, pressed record, spoke directly to the stars. We are not asking for permission. We are not begging for peace. We are taking what is ours. She paused. Then she said the words that would echo across the universe. Humanity has returned. Years had passed since the first shot was fired. What began as a single stolen message, a few rebels in hiding, and a stolen shuttle had become something far greater. Humanity was no longer under alien rule, no longer silent, no longer afraid. They were free, and now they ruled the stars. A new empire rises. Across the galaxy, human ships flew banners that read, "We are here." New colonies stretched from Earth to distant systems once controlled by the Zalari. Humans built cities in space, massive stations orbiting dead stars, and fleets that could match any enemy. The Free Human Front had grown into the United Human Worlds, a new government made up of soldiers, scientists, and leaders who had fought for freedom with their own hands. Jason Briggs stood on the bridge of the Liberty, now the flagship of the human Starfleet. He looked out at the stars beyond the viewport. Beside him, his sister Kayla worked on the navigation console. You ever think we'd make it this far? She asked. Jason smiled. Not really, he said. But I'm glad we did. Behind them, Admiral Marcus Cole walked onto the bridge. We've got word from Earth, he said. Lena's ready. Jason nodded. Let's go. The last negotiation. On Earth, the capital city of New Haven buzzed with life. It had been rebuilt after the war, stronger than before. The sky was full of ships, human ships, flying proudly over the planet. In the center of the city stood the Hall of Unity, where leaders from across human space gathered. Today, they would meet with the last of the Zalari hegemony. The war had broken their empire. Their fleets were shattered, their colonies lost. Many of their people had fled or surrendered. Now they came not as conquerors, but as diplomats. They arrived in silence, dressed in dark robes, faces unreadable. At the head of the table sat Lena Carter, now Chancellor of the United Human Worlds. She looked at the Zalari leader. You wanted to speak, she said. The Zalari diplomat bowed slightly. We come in peace, he said, to offer terms. Lena leaned forward. No, she said. You come to listen. Silence filled the room. The Zalari man hesitated. We understand your strength, he said. We do not wish for more war. Lena stood. There will be no more war, she said. Because you have already lost. She turned to face the crowd. We do not seek revenge. We do not want to rule others like you did. But we will never bow again. She pointed at the Zalari delegation. You tried to erase us. You told the galaxy we were weak, that we were dangerous, that we needed control. She stepped closer. But we proved you wrong. The Zalari diplomat lowered his head. You were never supposed to rise, he said quietly. Lena smiled. But we did. Freedom for all. With the Zalari defeated, other species began to speak. Many had lived under the hegemony for centuries, forced into silence and service. Now they saw what humanity had done, and they believed. From the Andari to the Virex, from the Dren to the Tolkar, messages poured in, requests for alliances, offers of trade, calls for help. Humanity had not just freed themselves, they had lit a fire across the galaxy. Jason and Kayla traveled to dozens of worlds, meeting with new allies, sharing knowledge, building trust. Marcus led the effort to train new pilots, create defense packs, and ensure that no one else would suffer as humans once had. Even some Zalari broke away from their old ways. Scientists, engineers, dissenters. They joined the United Human Worlds, offering their skills to build a better future. For the first time in history, the galaxy was not ruled by fear. It was ruled by choice. The final battle. Not all Zalari accepted defeat. Some refused to believe that humans had won. A rogue faction, calling themselves the True Hegemony, gathered what remained of the old fleet and launched one final attack. Their target? Earth. They believed if they could destroy the heart of the human rebellion, they could break its spirit. They sent a massive dreadnought toward the planet, protected by dozens of warships. They thought they would strike without warning. But Jason and Kayla had been watching. They warned Lena, and they called every ship they had. The battle took place above Earth's skies. Dozens of human ships rose to meet the enemy. Lasers lit up the clouds, missiles screamed through the air, fighters dove, and, twisted like birds of war, Jason led the charge. Kayla coordinated defenses. Marcus gave orders from the command ship. The dreadnought was powerful, but so were the humans. They struck hard, again and again, until finally, the enemy flagship exploded in a ball of fire. The rest of the fleet broke apart. Some surrendered, others fled. The battle was over, and the war was truly finished. A new future. Back on Earth, people gathered in the streets. Children ran through, the crowds laughing. Old men remembered the days when humans were slaves. Now they were heroes. Lena stood on the steps of the Hall of Unity and raised her voice. "The galaxy tried to forget us," she said, "but we reminded them who we are." She looked up at the sky. "We are not just survivors. We are builders. We are protectors. We are here." The crowd cheered. Jason and Kayla stood beside her. Marcus watched from the side, smiling. They had done it. They had taken back everything, and now they were building something better. The legacy of freedom. Years passed. Humanity grew. They explored new stars, built new homes, formed new friendships, and always they carried the same message. We are here. Children learned about the war in school. Songs were written about the fight. Statues were built in memory of those who had fallen. And across the stars, human ships flew proudly, carrying the name of a race that had once been forgotten. Now they were unstoppable. The final words. Jason stood alone on the observation deck of the Liberty, now docked in orbit around Earth. He looked out at the stars. So many left to explore. So much left to do. Kayla walked in beside him. "You thinking about the past?" she asked. He nodded. "I remember when we were just trying to survive." She smiled. "And now look at us." He turned to her. "We did it, sis." She looked at the stars. "We sure did." Behind them, Echo 7 spoke from the ship's speakers. "Humanity has returned." Jason grinned. "Yeah," he said, "and we're not going anywhere."